In the scriptures, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5 calls us to love God with our whole heart, mind, and soul as a response of God's loving, faithful concern for us. We can love God with a constant devotion of our heart. We can love God with a concerted focus of our minds and study. But what does the phrase, love God with all your soul, mean? One of the great Jewish scholars of the Common Era was Rabbi Akiba ben Joseph. Rabbi Akiba systematized rules and regulations for a Jewish lifestyle that influenced Judaism even today. He also witnessed the tumultuous period of the great Jewish wars of 66 to 70 AD and the Bar Kokhba revolt of 132 to 135 AD. While Josephus chronicled the fall of Jerusalem and Masada in the 1st century AD, scant references exist for the revolt in the midst of the 2nd century. The few sources we do have for the Bar Kokhba revolt revealed an asymmetrical campaign that faced brutal suppression. People died in the hundreds of thousands. The Babylonian Talmud, a commentary on the Jewish law or Torah, described the end of Akiba's life as a result of a Roman backlash against Jewish practices. According to the Talmudic legend, an imperial decree forbade the teaching of the Torah, but Rabbi Akiva, well into his 90s, refused to obey. In teaching his students, he wondered aloud what the phrase, love God with all your soul, really meant. As the Roman soldiers martyred him through a gruesome torture, he proclaimed his love for God with his dying words, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one," and extended that last word, one, with his final breath. Jews point to the death of Rabbi Akiba as the paradigm for living out the duty to love God found in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5. We are to love God for He is one, the last word of the Shema, the declaration of the Jewish faith. Because the word to be was absent and just understood in Hebrew, one could shout the phrase, "Hear Israel, YHWH, our God, YHWH, one," almost as a battle cry. But what does the word one mean in the context of the Shema? Originally, the word meant the only one, the only deity that really mattered to the life of the people in the midst of other deities. Scholars speculate that Israelites before the Babylonian exile understood the word in this way. So the Shema became a statement of national and personal loyalty to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Later, after the exile, the word shifted to mean alone, as in the only God. Here began the notion of Jewish monotheism. YHWH stood alone. All other deities diminished to the point that they didn't exist really at all. Greek concepts of the Platonic one soon crept into the notion of the only God. The one meant indivisible, in the same way the number one stands alone and really can't be divided. Next, Jews linked the idea of the one with the idea of holiness. YHWH was holy, as in unique, one of a kind, utterly different from any other experience of reality people had. Finally, the notion of the One took on the superlatives of knowledge, love, and power. YHWH was the One in that he was all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful. Hear Israel, YHWH, our God, YHWH, One. What response does that phrase demand of us? His loving concern requires us to love him with more than just a contemplative devotion. Our love for him should burst out into our lifestyle to the extent that we inspire others to love him as we do. Leviticus 19 is known as the Holiness Codes for the number of times the text invokes the name of the Lord. Actually, it repeats two phrases 7 times each. I am YHWH your God, and I am YHWH. The number 7 in Israeli numerology represents fullness and completion. Adding the number of the phrases together gives 14 times the text invokes the holy name, more times than any other place in the Jewish law. For that reason, this chapter holds a central place in the Torah. But that central place is literal. According to Jewish folklore, if someone rolled a Torah scroll out and folded it back so that the beginning and the end of the scroll met, the creased end would contain Leviticus 19. And on the creased edge itself, one would find Leviticus 19:18. Think of the first 5 books of the Bible as a mountain. Leviticus 19 would be the mountaintop, and the command to love one's neighbor would be at the very mountain peak. From a spiritual standpoint, this command placed ethics at the heart of holiness. To be holy meant to love actively. We love God when we bring him glory through the way we treat others. Jesus recognized that we cannot separate the love of God from the love of neighbor. Our ethics reflect our ability to love, which reflects our holiness. For this reason, the commands to love God in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5, and to love neighbor in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18, summed up the Jewish scriptures, the law, and the prophets.